Okay, you guys, I'm going to quickly go through a couple spots of this preacher for four horns, mainly focusing on the choices that I had to make as far as voicings go. So I'm going to cover the introduction and then later on just a little bit of the melody voiced out for four horns in the second 16 bars. And then I'm going to show you the little, not really a shout chorus, but after the solos, how you can write a melody such as a horn player would play a solo and then harmonize that out, and you'll have a nice little thing. So let's quickly take a look at the introduction. I made the introduction kind of an interlude introduction. So throughout the chart, I kind of separated sections by just playing this little introduction. So the other thing I want to mention is span, weight, and density. Remember that span, weight, and density, you always manipulate those three factors. If you don't know what those are, I'll cover them, or I did cover them in a video on jazzraisingclass.com. So it's basically the amount of span is the span between instruments. Weight is how many instruments are on a certain note, a specific note in unison, and then density is how many notes are in the chord. So in this case, we'll have four different notes because we only have four horn players. So, but I did go back and forth between like 1 part density, which would be unison, as you see the first note, to 4 notes, which is the first measure. Okay, so that's what I did on the first one. I made it in fourths. So you'll notice that when you write for 4 horns, and your trumpet player goes a little higher, you're going to have to move everybody up higher. So you don't want to get this big span between the horn players, because it's going to weaken the ensemble sound. So the big band, you don't have to worry about that, because each section kind of has its own spot on the the spectrum of sound. So you're going to let the bass player cover that bass note, and then I have that's B flat major 7. And there's different things I could have done there, but I like the chordal because it does sound really full. And then we go to, notice the other thing that I want to mention is that you always want to think vertically as well as horizontally. So make sure that every instrument has a good line, but you don't want to have a weird sounding vertical voicing. So if you notice, the one reason I chose this, because it goes to the B diminished 7 so easily, and then it goes easily to F7. You notice how easily those voices move from one to the next. There weren't big leaps or anything like that. Plus we have a nice compact sound. It's not a closed voicing necessarily. I probably could have got rid of the 5th in that F7 and played that. But the problem with that is that when it gets too high, I opted for the 5th. Normally I leave those out if I can in a dominant 7 chord, but I did have it there. And the next one too is another thing that I did in this is a lot of chromatic planing, not a lot, but some. And what I did was I anticipated chords coming up by doing chromatic planing. And so I took this line, I took that down to D by doing a little chromatic planing. So you'll see it goes from this chord to this one. So I had to get to D7 on that, and then I do a little unison pickup. Okay, you'll notice that when the trumpet player goes low as well, I opted more for a unison note, especially pickup notes. They work well for pickups because they just... here's another example of what I did for planing. Now I had to get to the G13 chord, which is this one. So rather than just go like I did in other spots, I chromatic planed to that note by going up 2 half steps and coming down in a triplet. So that works well. I thought it may not sound right, but if you're going to do chromatic planing, the faster it goes, the more the ear cannot find that it's not part of the chord. So even though this, if I played a G in the bass and played this first one, you'll notice how it sounds very strange, because it really is an A13 chord over G, because it's really accented passing chords, because you're moving quickly between those. And you can listen to the excerpt below and listen to the beginning and the whole chart if you want. But I want to get through just this introduction. So chromatic planing was, I did that twice in this little intro, and I think it sounds pretty good. Now notice the C7 sus chord. Why did I make it C7 sus? Because I have a F in the melody. Here's kind of a recurring thing that happens in the tune, so I just took it out of there. But I had to make it a C9 sus chord, basically. Okay, and then we have a unison note, and then G flat 9 to F6. Notice how everything moves very smoothly. So we had a number of things in that one. Voice leading, smooth voice leading, chromatic planing, as well as a little tritone sub there, right here. So G flat, I approached the F6 from above and made it. I was going to make it a C plus 7 flat 9. I could have done that, but I opted for. Okay, that's the first part of this video. Let's move on to the next one.